this is one of the other changes, and this is interesting. So the current principal duty relationship in this legislation is between an employer and an employee. Under WHS legislation, that changes to a PCBU, which is just diabolical, but it stands for person conducting a business or undertaking, and a worker. And a worker isn't necessarily somebody who's working, because that would be too straightforward. It's an employee, it's all those people up there, up to and including volunteers. So to understand the scope of this is kind of where we get to. Anybody got volunteer associations, footy clubs, that sort of thing? Yep, okay. So there's a church in Brisbane that was prosecuted under this legislation, and one of their fundraising activities was to do busy bees for the community. So they'd come around, knock on your door, g'day, we'll trim your roses, mow your lawn, whatever, for a donation to the church. Good job. Till somebody thought it would be a terrific idea to send a 14-year-old up a ladder with a chainsaw to do some tree lopping. And he died, and the church is prosecuted. So, the scope of that is still being worked out. Now, to come to your point, this is how it works. More than one party can have a duty at the same time, and more than one party can have the same duty at the same time. So your contractor who employs a bloke, well, you want to make it more complex. Your contractor brings in a labour hire worker. You, the labour hire company, and your contractor all owe the same duty to that worker. And you can all be prosecuted. It's not, safety legislation doesn't decide who is more liable. Remember, it's criminal prosecution. You've all got your obligations. If you meet your obligations, you're not guilty. If you don't meet your obligations, you're guilty. That's how it works, and they're all separate criminal prosecutions. And you have to discharge that duty to the extent that you have the capacity to influence and control. So if the labour hire worker, and I know there's some agricultural people here, so I'll pick on them. I'm a farmer's son from Goomalling, so I'm not picking on you in vain. But if your labour hire company has provided you with a labour hire worker who is working under the direction of your supervisor, you have direct control over that person. You owe exactly the same duty to them as any other employer. Where it starts to get complicated is when you engage technical contractors to come and do work. So if you engage an electrician to come and do electrical work on your site, you're not generally responsible for the way that expert contractors do work within their field of technical expertise. So the fact that you don't employ the person who is doing work in your business is not the end of the conversation when it comes to your health and safety obligations. That's the key point you have to understand.